Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of Dexter New Blood, Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Runaway. This is a very interesting, engaging episode of the show. This is one that I did really like just because it's one where it felt like everything is careening off a cliff very, very fast.
And also, I really liked it because they straight up revealed who is behind this. We got a pretty good indication at
Yeah.
the end of the last episode, but we sort of saw a little more of not necessarily reasoning, but like what he's kind of looking for, what Kurt is looking for with these runaways. I also love the use of the song Runaway. I love Del Shannon. I love 50s music, 60s music. So this is a good episode for me too on that front.
The great episode musically. I hope that I can continue to look at the song Runaway in a positive, non-Kurt Caldwell is about to do terrible things sort of way.
Or start dancing all strange in the bar.
I feel like Kurt Caldwell, even if he's not drunk, dances like a drunk guy. Like that, he has very big, like, drunk dad energy, Kurt Caldwell, except he's also a serial killer.
All right, but before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are here every weekend talking about Dexter New Blood. We also covered Power Book 2 earlier. We have a review up for that. We have Succession coming up tonight. Only a couple episodes of that left, but we also have Cobra Kai is coming up at the end of the month. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and don't miss out.
Also, check out our Instagram at Matt and Jess TV because we're going to have a lot of fun stuff over there as we get further and further into this magical holiday season.
All right, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Kurt of it all, or do you want to start with the Dexter Morgan Angel Batista of it all?
Ring that bell for that, because this is what, okay, it's a continuous storyline from the Power Book 2 video earlier where I said there were two moments in TV today that legitimately like knocked me off my chair. And I felt like Batista was probably going to show up at some point in New Blood, but I didn't think it was going to be now. And the moment that announcement came out at the hotel where they're like, and from Miami Metro, I lost my mind.
Oh my God, me too. I felt like probably we were going to see him at some point.
Yeah.
And even when they're like, oh, and she's going to like this convention
Yeah.
for other police officers, I still didn't even
No.
make that connection that maybe Batista was going to be there. It was so good. It gave me such a smile.
Yeah, I loved it. And I know that they announced so many people as coming back in advance. John Lithgow, Jennifer Carpenter, they never announced this. It was like a legitimately great moment, and it's obviously a very, very important moment for the show because it was enough. And that like subsequent after the whole speech that he gave conversation with Angela, he does mention the name Harrison, and it's like that sort of gets the ball rolling on a series of very, very bad events for Dexter Morgan.
Yeah, so now Angela has this information that there's this connection to maybe Dexter to Harrison, and then from her daughter, she mentions that Harrison, right before he ODs at this party, he mentions that Jim Lindsay is not his dad's real name, and it all starts to really come together for Angela, where she does a little bit digging of her own and finds Dexter Morgan's obituary and a picture of him.
It's so great.
Da, da, da. It's getting really good.
Yeah, I love that this is episode 5 and this is not like an episode 8 reveal, and they're not like we actually are going to get a lot of time on the other side of this. Now, I will dish out a controversial opinion here, and I can already feel the disdain from all you commenters. Well, now hear me out. I don't like Molly the podcaster either. I think she's terrible.
She's awful.
However,
Awful.
I really thought, and I still kind of do, that she was going to be the one to sort of piece everything together. Obviously, the way that the story was told in this episode, it was clear that Angela was going to be the one to figure it out, and I have no problem with that. But I just sort of felt like as much as I love Batista, and I'm glad that he's there, it was very coincidental that he was there at the right time, that Angela was there. And I just thought it made so much sense for, because Molly, I'm sure, did a lot of research on that Trinity episode. I'm sure eventually she would have met Dexter, Harrison. Maybe she wouldn't have recognized Dexter right away, but thought, oh, Harrison's kind of an interesting name, or oh, that guy looks kind of familiar. Where do I know him? And I could have seen the dots being connected, and that would have given this largely annoying character just like a little bit of purpose on this show other than just annoying us.
As much as Gibbs on NCIS likes to say there are no coincidences, I think there are some coincidences, and I'm okay with this one because I am not a fan of the Molly podcaster.
Yeah.
She is just a character I am so over,
Yeah.
and I mostly just try to pretend that she's not there because she's not really adding anything to the story. I agree that would have added purpose for her story because right now there just isn't any. However, I am glad that it was Angela that figured it out because in general, I'm kind of tired of seeing cops and FBI agents and whatever just be bumbling around and they can't figure things out for themselves. And that was one of the things that I liked about the original Dexter is that Dokes figured it out, and he figured it out fairly early on in the series. I like it to have that there are police officers or FBI or whatever that do good work and that can figure it out. And so I like that Angela is the person that figured it out. Sure, she got some help from Angel, but that happens as well. And it makes sense that she would be meeting up with other cops and other detectives at some point. She's at a conference where there's going to be a bunch of other detectives.
I will say there's one other advantage to if Molly had figured it out, which would have been we all know what happened to Dokes. Oh, this is going to be dark. It could have happened to Molly too, and then she would have been gone from the rest of the season.
It's about to get darker because I am very worried about Angela now at this point, especially because we saw her go to this conference and it was at this sort of same place, the same hotel, because she wanted to check up and make sure that Matt was actually there because his credit cards had been being used. Kurt said that he FaceTimed him. We all know it's a lie. She goes there, she sees the footage. Of course, it's not Matt. And she doesn't say anything to that hotel guy. So she's very good at keeping things to herself until she can investigate further, which is going to be very bad for Dexter.
I have a question for Kurt Caldwell because I'm having to assume that like he orchestrated this to some degree to have fake Matt staying there.
Yeah.
Can't you at least find someone who looks a little bit more like Matt? Like, this guy looked more like Billy Crystal than he did Matt. Like, what was this?
Well, I think he probably expected that once the credit cards are being used, and he's like, yeah, I FaceTimed him. She ran the credit cards. Credit cards are good. I don't think he expected her to go down there to tell him off for wasting her time.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, this is really going to put Angela in a very, very bad position. She's got all this information that's all surrounded these people who could easily get rid of her at like any possible moment.
Yeah, I am pretty worried she's not going to make it out of the season. I don't know if it's going to be Harrison trying to protect Dexter. I don't know if Dexter's going to have to just take her out himself, and it's going to end up maybe releasing everything that's going on with Deb, because I've been saying this since the first episode that Angela and Deb have a lot of similarities. They're both cops. They're both around the same age. They both have dark, brown hair, and it's all straight. And there's a lot of similarities going on. I just kind of wonder if he ends up having to kill Angela, if that's going to sort of release Deb from himself.
That's interesting. And I think it's certainly possible. And I think there's certainly a part of Deb who still lives on in some way beyond just like the subconscious version of her, which, by the way, this is the first episode where I don't really feel like Deb. As much as I love Deb, I don't have like an iconic great Deb moment from this episode.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
That moment where she was yelling at him about sort of, being a bad dad and really laying into him. Then they did this beautiful quick cut where she was like hugging him. I was like, oh my goodness. It was so good because it is a battle in his head. And of course, this is all in his head of, am I a bad person? Am I a bad dad? No, give a little bit of self love to yourself. Like, it was really well put together.
Yeah, I think that went by so quickly. It just sort of
It
slipped
was
right out my
fast.
mind.
It was fast.
But yeah, I do think that Deb in some way will have a big role to play before we get to the end of New Blood. But I think for right now, the whole central struggle here seems to be about Dexter and Harrison. Can one protect the other, or both sort of doomed in a way? And for Dexter, it's interesting that in this episode, so much of his sort of motivation ends up becoming, okay, I need to protect Harrison, who goes and has this, OD at a party, and then he tries to figure out the person who's responsible. And in doing all this, we also learn that Logan is actually not that terrible of a cop either, that he's pretty quick when it comes to like chasing down leads.
Logan is great, and I like again that they have really smart, capable cops on this show because it keeps everybody sort of on their toes, like Dexter. And Dexter is making some weird choices.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had this whole situation where Harrison OD'd. Dexter goes after the guy who was selling the drugs. Logan shows up, takes care of that, figures out who the guy is that's making the drugs, has the address. Dexter decides to go to this Jasper guy's house, doesn't really do any sort of like recon on the house to be like,
No.
how many people are in this house? Is this actually even him? We had Dexter go into the house and find drugs and it's like, oh, it must be him. It couldn't be anybody else. It couldn't be some guy over there walking the guy's dog. Couldn't be a son or a parent or anybody else. Didn't actually really check. He got lucky, but didn't check. And then decided to build his kill room in the house knowing that Logan's on his way. I was just kind of like, why? Why didn't you just take him out of the house? You know Logan's on his way and you know he's a good cop. He just caught you with Miles the drug dealer like a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you move him?
Okay, I'm gonna throw a theory out here because I refuse in my head to believe that Dexter just sucks at this now, which may actually be the case. He may just be too rusty on some of this, but I'm going to believe that Dexter's real weakness here is he's acting so much now out of this inherent need to either protect Harrison or put on this image for Harrison that, because he was very sloppy with the Matt Caldwell thing, and that was right after Harrison sort of shows up. And here he even admits that, okay, am I doing this just out of vengeance? Like, what is my motivation for all of this? That I think because of all of this, and he wants to be a good dad, and like you even pointed out with the internal struggle and Deb and all that, like that is a driving force. And I think unfortunately for most dads, I think their idea of being a good dad is just like, hey, you want to go bowling, or hey, you want to hang out, watch a game together, or like do this sort of stuff, or play video games.
Being a good dad.
Yeah, I think
that sounds like being a good friend.
Okay, well, okay, listen,
I like to go bowling and play.
Okay, yeah, that's true, but some father-son outings and blow off some steam. Talk a little. Dexter's I'm a good dad is I'm gonna go kill somebody, and I think it is clouding his judgment.
And I think Dexter knows that he's going to have to kill more, because when he went to go, hey, veterinarian cow delivery doctor, I know, I need some stuff, and she's like, oh, take whatever you want. He wasn't planning to just get one person. He took 2 boxes of needles, like 2. First he took 1 box. I'm like, how many needles do you need? Oh, I just better take another box. I was like, oh no, okay, you are ready for like a lifetime of this.
Listen, those goats, they need a lot of care. Like, this is the real question here. Is this veterinarian like really the most oblivious or like dense person in the world of Iron Lake.
Yeah, that also sort of felt a little bit messy on Dexter's part. Where it's like, oh, it's this store is open. Let me just take these drugs. Let me just take 2 boxes of needles. I'll take this plastic
Yeah.
wrap. What did he expect to end up happening down the road where people start going missing and the veterinarian's like, well, it's like going to a hardware store. I'll just take some bleach. I'll take some, garbage bags, some mops. It'll be fine.
It was Black Friday at the veterinary clinic. They were having a really good sale, of the sale being just take whatever you want.
Yeah.
All of that was a little bit messy. And speaking, of course, of messy here, Kurt.
All right, we got to get into the Kurt of it. So as I said, we knew in the last episode by the end, we saw him lead Chloe to the cabin that we had already seen where it has the cellar doors. We saw the front of it. It was the same cabin.
Yeah.
And this episode absolutely confirmed that he is behind this.
This entire sequence, like, all of it is strange, and it's something we obviously need a lot more information about. But I was sort of watching, the way Chloe handled this versus, I guess, the way however many other people have handled this. And all the things that are in my head are like, okay, how many times has Kurt done this over the years? And like, so much of him was like, oh, this hasn't happened like this before. This hasn't happened like this before. It was like, was it surprising to you that these things hadn't happened before in some way? It seems like every other time he did this, somehow it went according to plan.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got it set up in a way that makes sense that it would go according to plan, that you would scare somebody enough that by the time you're like, okay, the door is open, you can go, that they would try to run away as quickly as they could. But then you are going to run into things that could happen, like this, where you find someone who's decided to fight back.
Yeah, and she fought back in a number of different sort of ways because I think she wanted to figure out first and foremost, why she was there.
Yeah.
Then it was like, okay, what is he trying to use me for something? So she sort of tests this theory. That theory doesn't end up being true. And then even in the end, she still refuses to give him what he wants.
Yeah, which was good for, I think, just the movement of this character. Because if he doesn't get what he wants, then where is he going to end up kind of pivoting to? Which is where we get to with this scene with Harrison. Harrison has decided that he's going to run away, and he ends up getting picked up by Kurt and brought to the same diner that a lot of these women have been at. And at first I was kind of like, what is going on here? Because Kurt is doing the same things he's done with these women, where he offers them a meal. He tries to convince them not to run away. He gives them a little bit of money for help. And then he offers them the job, which everyone seems to turn down. And we don't know if Harrison turned down that job or not. But it was still an interesting thing to see. That it was kind of playing out the way he's played it out with these other women.
It's clearly his MO, right? Like, there's something that he's getting out of this. I want to help people get back on your feet, and if you don't want my help, then you don't deserve to be alive. Like, I don't really get where that connection comes. There's obviously, this show's all about psychological triggers, right? Like, there's something within his past that makes it feel like people who don't want his help don't deserve to be there for some reason. But, it's putting Harrison in a really, really bad spot. I mean, I hope that he takes the job, ? Just because that means that he won't be dead. Also, I don't know what exactly that would mean, because Harrison would be spending a lot more time with Kurt, I guess, if he's at the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is Harrison came back from the restaurant. He decided not to run away. He went back to his dad's house and basically said that he found someone to talk to. So now he's basically got 2 men in his life that he, not mentors, but influences in his life, and both of them are killers.
One of the things that I was thinking a lot about throughout this episode is, should Dexter have just said something more to Harrison and actually been more upfront about, hey, this is who I am. Like, I understand, obviously, the decision that he made, because I think telling anyone, guess what, I'm a serial killer, not exactly an easy thing to do.
No, and I don't think that that's not the road Dexter needs to go
No,
down.
but it still entered my brain.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be, it's not going to be helpful, and it's definitely not going to be helpful to Dexter because his number one thing is to preserve himself.
All right, this is the last thing I sort of wondered about here, and it goes back to Kurt's creepy House of Horrors. Why is Kurt so far out in the middle of nowhere that he can just like shoot off this really loud rifle and like nobody's ever gonna pay any attention to it?
The thing that I'm really curious about is how has Kurt been able to sort of get away with this for this many years? Like, I understand that he is choosing runaways, but at the same time, the police department knows that there are women that are coming into this town and disappearing.
Yeah.
It's a very small town. So small that Dexter can go into this veterinarian's office and take whatever you want. You want to take drugs and syringes? Go right ahead. No questions asked. That it's that kind of a town. And with Kurt acting as weird as he does after these kills, or right before he's ready to kill someone else, where he's dancing to Run Away and, being all strange in the bar, like, he's kind of a strange dude.
Biggest takeaway for this whole episode: I do not want to live in Iron Lake. This town, way too messed up. You've got multiple serial killers there. Apparently, you've got a really big party issue with a lot of recreational stuff being taken.
Yeah, oh man, to be a teenager these days doesn't sound like fun.
No.
I've never been to a party like that in my life. Like, maybe a little bit of drinking, but nothing like that.
And we are all grateful that we have not.
Yeah, maybe I just wasn't cool enough to
Okay,
be
listen.
a party like that.
This is going to come to a...
I'm just a nerd.
Shock everyone who's still watching. We are not cool. If you did not know that, surprise. Is that as big a surprise as Batista showing up in this episode? Let us know. And let us know your thoughts on this episode as a whole in the comments. And smash that like button, subscribe for more on Dexter New Blood, Succession, Power Book 2, Cobra Kai. So much good stuff at the channel. And we'll see you here next time.